Peace be with you. My dear sisters and brothers, that beautiful greeting which Jesus so frequently used when he came to his apostles, or when encouraging those in challenging circumstances, is a greeting which I've used many times in the past when I come to you, but never with more heartfelt purpose than I do so today. The passing of the radical and extreme Proposal 3 earlier this week marks a very sad day for the state of Michigan. Not only was a law passed, but the very constitution of the state has been amended to now include the right for a person to kill their unborn child with little to no limitations. And beyond that, the very constitution of the state is now the most perhaps permissive in the country and maybe even in the whole world for any and all aspects of reproductive services with no need for parental consent if the individuals are minors. Those of us throughout our diocese who worked diligently, prayed intently, and voted against Proposal 3 may very well feel sad, defeated, discouraged. And yet, in the words of St. Paul, we must instead rejoice in hope, endure in affliction, and persevere in prayer. It is true that this amendment to our Constitution is a major setback, but it is by no means a final defeat. We need to keep in mind that Jesus oftentimes added to his greeting the directive, "Be not afraid." Jesus has won the ultimate battle over sin and death, and Jesus has defeated the binding power of the evil one. Jesus has also promised that he has built his church on rock, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. So that's the reason why we can rejoice in hope. As followers of Christ, we know the end of the story, so to speak. God's ways will ultimately prevail, and so we endure in these present afflictions. Jesus has shown us the power of prayer in his own life, and he has urged us to pray always. Therefore, even now, we persevere in prayer. Indeed, as I said in my statement issued the day of the election results, we must not lose hope. Instead, we must continue our defense of the unborn. We must continue to work tirelessly to support pregnant women, new mothers, families in need. And we must advocate for a respect for life from conception to natural death and at every point along the human life spectrum. I remember well the mood throughout the country in 1973 when I was just a 2-year-old priest, and the Supreme Court upheld the Roe v. Wade decision, effectively guaranteeing the right to abortion in the United States Constitution. While that also was a major setback and a huge shock, it also spawned the pro-life movement, a movement which has grown over 2 generations of people who have prayed, protested, and advocated to overturn that decision, and in the process saved many lives. As we know, earlier this year, the Supreme Court ruled that the original decision should never have been upheld. However, with the passing of the amendment to our state constitution, we are being called to determine a new and more energized pro-life movement. Ultimately, we all know that this is not about amendments or laws or elections. What we need to focus on is conversion of hearts and enlightening of minds. We need to make sure that we we completely understand and that we clearly teach to others the church's moral teachings and the beauty and the wonder of God's precious gift of human life. We need to continue focusing on building a culture of life, to pray that God's mercy and grace will change the hearts of those who are bound by the illusions of individual freedom and the right to do whatever anyone wants to do with no regard to the well-being of others, in particular to the very lives of the most vulnerable among us, unborn babies. So, my dear family of faith, let us not lose heart. Let us open our hearts, be at peace, and heed Jesus' directive, do not be afraid. However, we have work to do. The tried and true spiritual directives of the early saints continues to be what we must do, to work and pray. So let us recommit ourselves to work by recommitting ourselves to defend and protect human life in all that we do, to vote for those in future elections who will do the same. Let us do all that we can to protect and defend and respect human life at every point along the life spectrum. In addition to work, I would ask every Catholic, every person of strong faith, to pray fervently. I strongly suggest that we commit ourselves to praying the beautiful prayer known as the Memorare, at least once a day, perhaps multiple times a day. It's a powerful prayer. In addition, I would ask every Catholic to redesignate Friday of every week, if you're not already doing so, and if you are doing so, that you would designate that sacrifice in particular for the intention of respect for human life. And that day would be a day of abstaining from meat or whatever food product that would serve as a bit of a sacrifice for you from now and moving forward. Dear friends, Jesus has revealed to us that following him and living in his ways is not an easy path. It will be filled with challenges and, on occasions, setbacks. Sometimes setbacks because of our own human failings, at other times because of society's very sad choices. But we must remain people who continue waiting in joyful hope for the coming of the Lord at the end of all time, and as he comes to us each and every time we celebrate the Holy Eucharist. Jesus is the hope who never disappoints. He is the reason for our ability to hope. He is the light in the darkness, and no darkness, even the darkness of this amendment, will ever extinguish it. So, may the peace of Jesus, our hope, be with you now and always.